Hey guys, the last video from Module 2 is really one of the more important videos that we're going to have all semester long. This is going to serve as our introduction to HTML, and so my objectives for this short little time that we have is I want to introduce kind of the general syntax for HTML tags. I want to give you a PowerPoint file that you can go back to as a repository for what I mean when I say elements or tags or whatever. We've talked about it a little bit in previous screencasts, but in this one I really want to nail that down. I want to further define a web page in terms of the page head, body, title, all of that, and I want to introduce kind of the structure elements that HTML5 really excels at. And those are what is going to allow you to arrange your page in a certain way. So let's get started. So web pages are the product of really three languages working together, and those three languages are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and ultimately HTML is responsible for what shows up on the page. So what you're going to say is HTML. How you're going to say it is CSS. So CSS is what is going to control how things look, where they show up on the screen. You know, is it way up over here? Is it way down over here? Is it red? Is it white? Is it this kind of font? Is it that kind of font? That's all CSS. What HTML does is it says what is going to show up. So is it going to be a header tag? Is it going to say this is my website? Things like that. There are specific elements, tags, and attributes. So let's walk through what I mean by each of those. So elements are what basically build an HTML document. An HTML document is ultimately composed completely of elements. Elements are denoted by tags, one or more. So a two-sided tag is something similar to what we've already seen, where you have a caret and then you have some statement of what it is. So in this example it says element, but it could be h1 and then you end the caret, and then whatever you put here, this part that says content, that is what is actually going to show up on the screen. And then to end it, you have a caret and a slash, and then you repeat whatever you said over here. So if you say element over here, you got to say element over here, and then you close it. Okay, so that is a two-sided tag, and tags are what build elements, and elements are what build web pages. Okay, so a two-sided tag should completely enclose its content. So if you're going to mark a paragraph, so you start it with the p tag, right? So you have this little tag right there. If you're going to start it that way, you also need to end it all the way after it. So if you put the p tag after the word of right here, then a nested element would not show up on your screen. But if you put it all the way down here on the end, this entire sentence will show up. Okay, so elements can contain other elements. So in this case, we have a paragraph tag. It's this p tag. Here's where it starts, here's where it ends, and inside of that is a bolded tag. That's this b. So it starts the bold, it bolds just the word nested, and then it ends the bold right there. Okay, so elements, some elements at least, can be given specific attributes. Now attributes are things that are relative to just that element. So let's say that you wanted to have an entire block of text, so an entire text that is within a paragraph tag, and you want it all to be left aligned. Okay, you could use the attribute align, and then you say equals, and then in quotes you're going to say left. Okay, so you gave, this is the overall element is a paragraph tag, and you use the p tag here all the way to there. You gave it an attribute using align, and you gave that attribute a value called left. Okay, this will all make more sense the more you do it, I promise. Don't let it confuse you. Okay, so in general, every HTML page, regardless of where you're looking at it, is divided into two groups, the head and the body. Everything that is going to be displayed, and I know I've said this like 8 times, but I'm going to keep on saying it because you're eventually going to mess this up, and I'm going to be able to remind you here, and then you're going to fix your mistake, and it's going to be great. Everything that you want to show up on the page has got to be in the body element. If If it's in the head element, it will not show up on the screen. Okay, so an example structure. We've talked through some of this before. The head content will not display. The body content will display. You're starting the HTML and you're ending the HTML. Okay, so within the head element, what actually is going to go in it? If it's not content, then what is it? Well, one of the things is the title. And what you put inside your head, inside the title tag, like this, is what is going to show up right here. Okay, so the title, what is in the title tag for this page is breaking news, U.S. world weather, entertainment, and video news CNN.com. Many other things are going to go in the head element. Okay, so there's CSS styles and all kinds of other things that we're going to talk about in further later modules. Specifically in the next module, we're going to talk a lot about CSS, and so I don't necessarily want to cover that right now because that's coming. Okay, so for now, just know that the title is there. Within the body, HTML5 is really great because it gives us several specific structural elements that allow us to style our page in a certain way. Those are article, aside, footer, header, nav, and section. Okay, so you can read through these little discussions on your own, but in general, they make a lot of sense. The footer goes at the bottom, the header goes at the top, the nav contains all of your navigation, the article is the main block of text, the aside is whatever's going to be in your sidebar. Makes a lot of sense. So what does this really look like when you lay it out? Well, it looks something like this. Okay, so this is what it looks like within HTML5, and this is what it looked like just a few short years ago in HTML4, where every little division of the page was called a div, and every div was given a specific name, like header. Well, now we don't have to do all that. We can just say header, okay? And it does the exact same thing. We're going to talk a lot about divs in the next two modules. We still use them, but not in the same way. So this is what you could possibly have a website look like. Okay, so you have all this code, and you need to be able to come back to it maybe in 6, 9 months, a year, and know what in the world you were doing. Well, there's a way to remind yourself, and that is leaving comments. Comments in your HTML document will allow you to say, hey, this next group is all of the links for the sidebar. Okay, so in 6 months when you come back and you need to change one of those links, you don't have to go searching and scrolling for days all the way to find it. Comments are completely ignored by the browser. They will not show up unless you do something wrong. Okay, so if you wanted to place a comment next to something in a document, you would say caret, exclamation point, 2 hyphens, and then whatever you put next will not show up. Okay, so this is a comment, and then you would say hyphen, hyphen, end caret. And this whole thing right here makes up a block of a comment. Okay, so I use a lot of comments in my web design work. Before I put any navigation element, I'm going to put a comment of where it is intended to go. Before I do a big block of text, I'm going to have a comment so that I know how to find it. It's just a way of giving yourself cues over time so that in a few months when you come back and you've thought about other things and you slept so you don't remember exactly what you did, this will allow you to find your content really fast and make really fast changes. It's also nice if you work for a company where you might not be there for forever, so you leave yourself comments so that, let's say in a year you change jobs, whoever the next poor soul is that has to redesign your site doesn't have to decipher it on their own. They can use your comments to help themselves. Okay, so this has been a brief introduction to HTML. If you go into the assignments folder on Blackboard for this module, there's a little short assignment where I want you to introduce some of these tags and elements and attributes and all of that into the Hello World document that you built for the last module. And by doing that, I want you to just kind of practice some more. Next module, we're going to learn CSS, and we're going to keep on changing and keep on adding things. So if you'll follow along with those assignments, make sure you're turning them into Blackboard, and you'll do just fine. If you have any questions about this, please do email me, and I'll see you during the next module.